All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Brous. Welcome to HBAP Startups. My friends call me Todd the Bod. And I know what you're thinking. You're hoping that I won't make another silly joke about clinically proven Aveeno daily moisturizing lotion. Kelly's putting his hands in his face. So I'm here with my partners in crime, Susan Shultz and Liz Otero. Thank you, guys. We'd like to welcome everyone to HBAP Startups. So let's get started. Tonight, we're going to go through our slides rather quickly so we can get to the workshop. We've got a lot to cover tonight. For those of you who are new to the Startups group, we do a bunch of announcements. We still will do the networking breakout rooms, and then we'll come back together for our main event. Next slide, Susan. Sorry, the mission. There we go. Perfect. We're here to help foster and fortify an innovation and entrepreneur community coming out of the Harvard Business Analytics program. Our goal is to provide our members with the tools, knowledge, leadership, and confidence necessary to create and grow their businesses from the ground up. I will post a bunch of links into the Zoom chat so you know how to get in touch with us and how to stay connected with our community. Next slide. Next slide. And this is you, Susan.
Yes. So in the spirit of who we are, just a reminder to everybody, it's a safe place for people to learn and talk and bring up ideas and concerns and problems. And so it's based on trust, confidentiality, and just a reminder that all rights are reserved by the presenters. And then, as always, our feedback credo. So for every 5 pieces of heartening feedback, we only give a maximum of 1 pernicious kind of feedback. And then a la Kelly, don't be an $, sign. Be nice. And we learned about a difficult personality disorder today at Startups Academy, which is right in line with this kind of feedback approach.
Upcoming stuff next week, we are not having a startups meeting. That is the HBAP social overtime. April 12th is to be determined. Just I want to put this out there. Does anybody know an expert in business insurance? We're looking for somebody to come speak to us about all the different types of insurance that we would need as entrepreneurs. April 19th, Dolly Singh is coming back for an encore presentation. We're all excited for that. And on April 26th, our very own Pam Groen will be talking about the business of science. Next slide. All right, let's do some quick breakout rooms. And bear with me. This is going to take a second for me to fix. Boy, I have to move. I'll try and move Mafe into
both Mafes.
Both Mafes into the same room. I think I got it. I think I got it. All right. I will see you all in about 6 minutes. Have fun. All right, welcome back, everyone. Susan, can you share your screen? And then we'll continue. All right, next slide. All right, so cool. I hope you guys had fun in your breakout rooms. Just as a reminder, after we're done with the workshop and we'll stop recording, please fill out the survey when you exit Zoom. Filling out surveys saves lives. So fill out the survey. What else? Just as again a reminder, the recordings are going to be made public, and please stick around for some overtime. All right, next slide. So tonight is about de-risking the entrepreneur and your team. And before we get started, I really want to thank Victor Capo, Satya Mayandi, and Lauren Moores for helping us put this workshop together. Without their help, we would probably be watching like Taylor Swift and Blackpink music videos all night. So thank you all for that help. All right, next slide.
I just want to make note that we have many special people on the call tonight, but I just want to call out that another Los Angelina and my daughter is on the call, and very exciting about that. Okay.
Mom. Glad to be here.
Hi, Cass. Next slide, Susan.
I'm trying. I
Oh,
am.
okay.
Okay.
All right, so agenda, we'll do a little overview. We'll talk about some stakeholders. We'll show a couple of tools that everyone can use. And then we'll share a slide deck with you like we've done in the past with our previous workshops. We'll go into some breakout rooms and we'll have a debrief afterwards. Okay, next slide. So y'all have seen this slide before, I hope. It's from Strategizer's book on testing business ideas. And when going from an idea to a functioning business, the entrepreneurs and innovators' #1 task is to reduce risk and uncertainty. This is the definition of making progress. Next slide. And you may have also seen this startup curve diagram before. This is talking from the context of tonight. The greatest risk of failure lies in not de-risking all areas of the early stages of a startup. It's hard to focus on all of these stakeholders and get everything done because everything is a priority and you don't have enough resources to do much of anything in the first place. What are you even thinking to create a startup? Well, that's a separate therapy session. And if you're new to this, there's a huge learning curve. Most folks don't really know how to do all of this stuff correctly. And we need to learn from each other, which is why I'm really glad that all of you are here in the first place. This is a bumpy ride. If you look on the right-hand side, there's my favorite trough of sorrow and the wiggles of false hope will knock you around before you can get to the promised land. You need to start thinking about how to de-risk now. The journey is not short and flat like one might think from the left-hand part of the slide. What looks like a smooth period is actually a really rough road. And the amount of risk in early stages is incredibly high. Some of the turmoil, fortunately, can be de-risked. Now, who exactly are we de-risking for? The stakeholders. Next slide, Susan. So again, this is who are we dealing with? The uncertainty for these 5 stakeholder groups. It's your customers, your investors, your product, your team, and you.
And what was interesting in the Startups Academy today, for those of you that are participating in that, is Greg Clark, who is like a multiple unicorn startup guy, massive turnaround company with billion-dollar companies, and also just this really wise, great, humble person. So he literally said in his talk to us, he said, in order to build a great company, you have to be aware of and engaged with all of your stakeholders and their needs. And then he said, and you need to spend more than 50% of your time doing this engagement and understanding of your stakeholders. And then he said, you make a list of your stakeholders, you make a list of their needs, you make sure your leadership understands it. And every plan you have, like your 3-year plan, you build backward 3 years to make sure how are you going to meet every one of those prioritized needs from all those stakeholders. So it was super cool to have him tell that.
Next slide. Yeah. And I guess I'll finish up here, but for some previous context, we've done a lot, I'm proud to say, at the HBAP Startups Club and the HBAP Startups Academy workshops. There was a design thinking workshop by Victor, last week's session with Allison Byers, de-risking the pitch deck, which, by the way, that is now on YouTube. So please check out our YouTube channel. And all of the stuff that we've done in the Startups Academy. We did the BCG Bright House purpose information, cap table, safes. It's all here. And, so we've done a lot of stuff about this. And so today we're going to talk about the next slide. Susan?
Yeah. So today we're going to focus on you and your team. And especially for early stage startups, probably the 2 most critical stakeholders. Again, Todd talked about, we don't have a lot of resources. We have all this stuff we need to do and not enough time to do it. So if we don't risk these 2, there's a pretty high probability of failure. So let's look at the startup curve again, right? So these early stages over here, Todd mentioned this, we have excitement and novelty and sorrow and fear and joy and fear and self-doubt and excitement and fear. And we feel all of those emotions in one day, and often, as some of you have told me, even in 1 hour. And so there's all this intensity of emotion and activity going on in these early stages. And this is really why we need to de-risk ourselves and our teams. So what we're going to focus on today is we're going to show you a couple of tools to do this. So there's many, many terrific and proven tools and approaches to de-risk yourself and your team. And I'm sure all of you have some favorites, and we'd love to hear about those as well. We're just going to focus today on personality tests and then a model called the conscious competence model. So personality tests, there's a ton of them out there, right? There's Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, there's just Caliber, there's hundreds of them. So we picked one. This Satya found it, and then Jeremy Langer also sent this out in the WhatsApp channel. So we picked it because it's easy, it's free, and it's science-based. So, and it's really Red Bull's branding to really focus on high performance teams. And so why do we want to use personality tests? Well, it's really just about understanding ourselves and each other, which does two things. It reduces friction and it improves the likelihood of success. So two cautionary notes here. One is no personality test is entirely correct or entirely incorrect. It's just an indicator because, we're multidimensional and we're evolving over time. And then the other cautionary tale, of course, that probably we've all lived is never use them to label people ever. Okay, so let's get into this this Red Bull thing. So it's called Wing Finder. You can see it's focusing on strengths, and it's really the science of working with psychology professors from the University School in London and then Columbia University. And it has 4 components: creativity, thinking, drive, and connections. And so what I'm going to show you now is Satya Mayandi, who I can't tell if he's on now, but he has a child thing that he needs tonight to do tonight. So he's my co-founder and CTO, and we both took this test and then we compared the results, and we had some pretty incredible illuminations as a result, and that's what I'm going to show you. So just first to note, there's a scale on all these, and you can see my stuff is on the top, Satya's is on the bottom, and you can see where we are on the scale. So this is the first one around creativity, and you can see I leap enthusiastically into the unknown, and Satya tends to respectfully preserve traditions. And we kind of knew this, but it wasn't really super clear to us. But then as we were thinking about it, we thought about what happens every time a customer says, "Ooh, I love this. Can you add this thing?" My response is, "Let's do it." And Satya's is, "Put it in the backlog." And so just being able to understand that that's just because we're very different on this particular piece of our personalities is really helpful to understand. Okay, and here's another one where we're quite different. So you can see this is looking at kind of the difference between how we want to be with people. And so I'm naturally supportive of colleagues, and Satya enjoys working independently. And so the way that that shows up is I thrive in a day filled with meetings. That causes Satya a massive headache because he needs some time to get independent work done. This was actually kind of an area of friction between the two of us till we discovered this, because I was always wondering, like, well, why doesn't Satya want to be on these really cool calls with me? Well, now I understand why. And then the last one I wanted to show you was, one where we're the same. We're very, very similar. So, and it really shows where it's taught us where our lack of diversity can be a big problem for our team. So you can see we scored way to the right on this, which means it takes a lot for Satya and me to feel the pressure of the situation. And of course, early stage startup filled with lots of pressure. And so look what it says, that both of us may not realize when our others are stressed. And this absolutely has happened with our teams where, Satya and I are like, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And our teams are like, what the hell? You know, hang on, dudes. Give us a break here for a moment. This is highly stressful for us. So this really, really helped us understand our team better as well. So really what we've learned through this is, kind of the power of our diversity. And so that really kind of took a lot of the friction that we sometimes feel away because we understand each other now. And that's really a massive de-risking of our team. And then just really being able to be conscious of our various strengths and our similarities and our differences. So now I'm going to go to the second model, which is the conscious competence model. And this is a different kind of tool. This is a kind of tool that people use kind of throughout the life cycle of a task or a project or a company. So it's an ongoing tool to use. And the model, and most of you are probably aware of this model, so I'm just going to kind of give a refresher to it. So this model really looks at two factors in thinking about ourselves and our team members. It's when we're learning something new. So it might be a new skill, it might be a new job, it might be a new home, it might be a new role. So whenever there's something new. So it looks at it from the standpoint of consciousness, so awareness, and then skill level, which is competence. And so every time we start something new, we start in this unconscious, incompetent box. So it's that we don't know what we don't know. And then we start realizing that we don't know something, and we move into this conscious incompetence box where we're starting to realize we need new skills or experience or knowledge, and we don't have it yet. And then over time, as we learn and get better, we move into this conscious competence box where we now have the skill and the experience to do the work, but it still requires some focus and effort to do it. And then we move into this unconscious competence box where it's like muscle memory. We do it and we're not even conscious of how we do it. And so we cycle through these all the time. So then the second part of this which is the part that I think is super interesting, is look at these three categories. So we have frustration, we have confidence, and we have understanding. And this is what's really helpful for us, for ourselves, and for our teams, is to think about, okay, so when we start and we don't know what we don't know, it's all good, right? Then we move into that conscious incompetence, and our frustration and our team's frustration levels go way up. Our confidence dips a lot. And then slowly, as we move through, our frustration lowers and our confidence goes up as our understanding and our skills improve. So why is this so important, especially for startups? Well, first of all, this cycling through these four boxes happens very frequently in startups because we're learning so much. There's so much to do. There's so much we don't know. So we and our teams are cycling through this all the time. So as I've had conversations with some of you, it's kind of this continual state of high frustration, low confidence, doubting ourselves, worrying, being afraid, and then high frustration, with various things. So we need to think about what happens when we or our teams are in this state here, right? Three things could happen. People quit because they're frustrated. People check out because they're too frustrated and their confidence is too low. And our ability to learn is slowed way down. And so what do we do? So one of the things about this model is when you see this in yourself, this dip of confidence and this rise in frustration, is really to check in with yourself. And then if you see it in your team, check in with them as well to ask, tell me what's going on. Tell me how I can help you. Think about what help do I need to get through this stage to keep learning so that my frustration drops and my confidence goes up. So this is a nice model. I and a bunch of other people have used this over the years just to become a lot more aware of where we are and also where our team members are, so that when we see them getting frustrated or their confidence dipping, we know to step in and say, okay, how can I help you? What do I need to do to help move you and me through this phase? So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
I have a question. The Foursquare looks like you go from unconscious incompetent. Wait a minute, where am I? Unconscious. How do we go from unconscious competence to unconscious incompetence back to conscious incompetence?
Yeah,
Let's
so
start
it's,
over again.
it's just a cycle. So every time you enter into something new where you don't have all the skills or the experience or the knowledge, then you go back into this.
Yeah.
You start over again.
So as long as we don't do anything new, we're good.
We're all good. It's all good.
Perfect.
Right. Once you've learned everything
Yeah.
and you've become omniscient with the universe, you cease to go back into the unconscious incompetence.
Well, then there's hope.
Then there's hope. There's hope. Constantly learning. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Next slide, Susan.
Yep. So now we're gonna go do the thing.
We're going to do some breakout rooms. Okay. While everyone was chatting, I was creating some breakout rooms. We're going to set you up into 2 or 3 people per room. I know some people might have to drop, so we do apologize for that, but I think we got a good balance. Collaborate on the conscious incompetence and personality test questions. I'll show you a slide in a second that has the questions that you're going to fill out. You discuss, help, support each other. Please grab an open slide. Please put your name on that slide, and I'll show you that in a second. Fill out the questions, and then step number 4 is we'll have a debrief back in the main session. We'll volunteer to discuss these with the larger group. I think, what are we, 20 minutes for the breakout room, Susan? I forget the time.
Yep.
I forget what we said.
Yep.
So we'll do 20 minutes, and then we'll pop everyone back into the main thing and we can debrief. Next slide, and I can show you what you guys are going to fill out. So here are the questions that you're going to do. Let me put this deck into the Zoom chat in a second. So yeah, tell a story of when you felt conscious incompetence, and you just double click on the slide there. I'll show you in a sec. What could you have done differently in that situation? Did you ask for help? If not, why not? What would you have liked your supervisor or leader, team members to have done to help you through that situation? What are you now going to do as a leader? How are you going to detect and respond to someone who's in that unconscious incompetence, or yourself in that situation? And how might you use the illuminations from a personality test to help you de-risk yourself and your team? Those are the questions. So Susan, can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah.
I want to share the this is the deck that I'm going to be sharing with everyone right now. I hope you guys can see this. Here's the link to the deck. You should be able to pop this up. We've included at the very beginning the examples of Susan's and Satya's personality test. Here's the slide of the conscious competence model and the instructions. And so what I'm asking everyone to do is just grab an open slide. The first thing you should please do is put your name here. So I'm going to take slide 7 and put your name there, and that is claimed. So I will go ahead and start to fill in my conscious incompetence slide. On that note, are there any questions? All right, I guess if there are no questions, I'm going to open up all the breakout rooms. We'll see you guys in about. Oh, is there a question?
Todd,
Yes.
Todd, are we supposed to have done the personality test?
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank
No,
you.
that it's a hypothetical. If the question 6 is how might you use that help you de-risk yourself and your team. All right.
Very nice. Thanks for the introduction.
Thanks, Jen. All right, I'm opening up all the breakout rooms. I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I think I got Mafe in both rooms, but
Yeah,
both
it looks like
Mafes in the same room. Martin, you
looks-
should be in a room with Saima. Martin, are you there? We might, I don't know if
Can you
Martin's
move
there.
them in?
I cannot physically move him in. I can move him to a different room, but I can't move him into, oh, okay, he got it. All right.
Okay.
He might not be around and might not be able to participate. All right, so I'm going to share the breakout room deck so we can see if anybody's doing anything.
Cool. What'd
I
you
made
think?
What'd you say? Oh, Susan, you're fucking brilliant. Okay. I should pause the recording. All right. I hope you guys had fun in your breakout rooms. Thanks for doing this exercise. So we're gonna ask for some volunteers, and we got Donna to come up and talk to us about how she filled out the breakout room slide. So Donna.
So when you posed the question to us about conscious incompetence, very quickly, something came back to me that occurred about 3 decades ago when I first became a lawyer. Okay. And so I call it as my first trauma that came to mind for this project. And I was asked to present on this new Personal Property Security Act legislation to bankers by one of my partners at the law firm that I was very new at. I had just joined. I was working around the clock like a dog, and I was asked, Donna, I don't remember being asked. I think I remember being voluntold to do that. And so I knew that I was teaching on something that was very new for everybody. And so why not me? But I also know that speaking on my feet when I'm not getting a lot of sleep on something that's totally new is not my forte. So I felt very consciously incompetent for that presentation, and it stuck with me. So do I just go through the quick answers here? So then what I could have done differently is I had to learn the power of no. That took me a few years. So I probably should have admitted, just as I find younger people today are smarter than I was, that I had way too much to do and I was comfortable with assisting but not presenting. So not say a no, say a yes, but give a conditional yes rather than overstress myself. And I said, did I ask for help? And if not, why not? I did not ask for help as I thought I had to fake it until I made it. And I didn't think I had an option. But again, that was in my mind, really. What would you have liked your supervisor, leader, team members to have done to help you through that situation? Well, given that I didn't know that I had these options, I came from a background of never having seen a lawyer before I went to law school. I would have liked if someone would have reached out and not just, treat you like you are just, I would have liked them to have asked me instead of tell me. And I would like them to have told me they would have supported me, even if I didn't say yes to everything, and that they would not have taken it personally. So I always try not to take these things personally. So what am I now doing? So I deal with a number of new lawyers and articling students and other situations too, when I'm on boards and there's, executive directors and stuff. I always try to say to people, if you ever feel like you have too much, to reach out and I will redelegate and make sure your workload is reasonable. I wish someone could have, with wisdom, would have helped me do that so I wouldn't have burnt myself out. I also try to check in and ask how they are doing. And I try to recognize that people still don't like to admit that they have any weaknesses, or it may not even be a weakness. And so I try to not only listen to what they say, but I try to read into the situation and encourage them, but I say I'm kind of guilty of, encourage them to press their boundaries, not to stop themselves, but to do recognize they got limitations. And on a personality test, as you folks know, I've started up my new law firm, and, probably I really like the idea of a personality. I've taken a ton of personality tests because of my undergraduate, and I kind of know my leaping flaws and stuff, but maybe I could do that in the hiring process so that would avoid some trial and error, that I could hire smarter and that I could understand my people sooner, so I don't have to potentially offend them or do anything like that. So I can see that it could really help de-risk a team. Is that kind of what you wanted, Todd?
Yeah,
Yes,
this is perfect.
that's great.
Okay, that's what I got.
Thank you.
Okay, Link.
Link, what slide
Yo.
number are you?
Am I not number 19?
You are number 19. All right, let me find slide number
I gave
19.
I thought they were all different, so I just picked one randomly.
That's perfect. That's what you're supposed to do. So
So
Link,
it's-
talk to us.
so very recent, because it's very current in my mind, and what I've been spending all of my hours doing is building a cost and revenue analysis for my new startup, NAZ Local. And when I got started with basically with the whole spreadsheet with all the numbers, I felt very conscious about knowing what needed to go all in it, what it all needed to add up to, what the major research was saying. And I knew what needed to happen, but I didn't necessarily have the skills to make it happen. And so what I could have done differently, I'll go about what I did to solve the solution. I actually got help from a platform for freelancers that got some grant funding that enabled me to hire some freelancers from ADP, actually, which was great. So they had all of the experience to build me a cost analysis, revenue analysis spreadsheet that I could add to. And so that has basically enabled me. What I could have done differently is I was encouraged a lot to use SCORE and all the different resources that are free out there. But I sat back and kind of really wanted to figure out what the best solution would be for me in the long run. So did I ask for help? I did, but I waited until I really knew what I wanted to have done first. And really that I knew that I needed money to keep me going. And so I felt myself asking people for help along the way to believe in me rather than showing them my progress along the way. So I wish I would have done that differently too. But I think the piece of that was confidence. What would you like your supervisor? I don't have a supervisor. It's just me. I'm a lone ranger. What are you going to do? What are you now going to do as a leader? I'm going to continue to talk to my business partner. We talk daily. I spoke to him 9 times today. And so we're on speed dial. And so I think that support has really helped me through this, is that we think very differently than one another, and we always bring a balance. And so I'm going to continue to do that. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to launch this son of a gun. I'm going to get it going. What are you going to do now as a leader? That's what I'm going to do. How might you use the whole personality test? Actually, it helped me frame where I was at in the process and where I could inform myself what I need to do next, why I was feeling that way, or recognize where I am in the process, and then really what to do next. So I'm going to save the tool for future use. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Link. So does anybody else want to go? If not, John, do you want to go for it? Okay, you guys see your hand waving. So if you can unmute yourself and tell me what slide number you are.
Oh, 11.
Your
Slide 11.
All right, let me pull up slide 11.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So this is for the situation that I was in medical center, 3 different medical centers, about totally all 3 medical center add together 18 years. Every 2 years, counted. Every 2 years, I have to move from a lab 1 to lab B. Every 2 years. Why? Because the NIH grant. That was the period that supposedly changed to the new project. So that was the background. And then for the conscious and the incompetence. So when I try to have a new position, I am very conscious knowing that I can do the job very well. And however, the new environment will be the unexpected situation that occurs. I might feel incompetent to handle. And that was a situation constantly go cycles every time. And so what could you do then differently in that situation? So all you can do is that prepare more and more and hard for the full knowledge that you can prepare. And then anything outside of that, you just play air or play like a pretended, like Donna says, right? And then, so did you ask for help? If not, why not? So in some expected knowledge that I will ask for help, for unexpected knowledge that we may not get targeted help. So, and also in the same time, we might waste of the time, and normally I will not ask any help. So could you have liked your supervisor leading or member to have them to help you through that situation? Well, open up for the introduction, giving enough the emotional support, and then give enough environment, including material support. I think that will help. Other than that, you just on yourself. What are you now doing? Going to do as a leader or whatever? I will providing all the book material knowledge and then give open mind to anything happens. Just be prepared. And as a leader, I just open mind whatever, accept it. How might you use illumination from a personality test and have you de-risk yourself and your team? So I will expect my team to do the same for me, open the mind, give support, and then complement each other. That is very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Gian. I'm like listening to you and I'm reading your stuff. I'm like, yes, I feel that completely. I have that is my own story right there.
No, that's cool.
Thank
that's
you.
Cool. Very nice. Yeah.
So anybody else? Cass, are we going to you?
Well, I would love to add, Divya, Victor, and I sort of had this wonderful conversation. We're at slide number 14.
Okay, cool.
Divya and Victor, do you want to all of us just chat and run through it? Do we have time, or one of us can summarize? Or
we've got time.
You have time.
Great. Victor
Sure.
was taking notes. We got more into the philosophy and takeaways from each one.
Victor, go for it,
So-
and then I'll jump in.
Okay, so I agree. We had a great conversation. For my first point of telling a story, conscious incompetence for me was the recognition that I had a mismatch between a critical task that had to be done and the resources available to do it. And more than that, the recognition of a highly specialized need that you would have to put some effort into achieving. It's not something you could navigate through or somehow brush off. It had to do with FDA non-compliance, so it was a serious issue. And the executive team had to get through that. What would I have done differently in this situation? I didn't cause the situation, so I kind of had to wait for guidance. The FDA stepped in, and we had an expert hired who had done these types of response to warning letters and that kind of thing. And so I kind of had to be on the sidelines, look at my operation, because I was responsible for shipping equipment, which might not have been able to ship, but depending on the FDA's decision, also repairing, also sending loaners, also providing for trade shows. So I was waiting for guidance on all those things, at the same time preparing what I could in any circumstances. And so all I could do was really eat ice cream. Did I ask for help? My first instinct, because I wasn't leading the regulatory piece, which would have been a big incompetence for me at the time. I was fully aware of the quality system in the operation, but not how to respond to defying the FDA. So I would rely on my own skills as an instinct before asking for help. And in this situation, I was forced to wait for guidance. What would I have liked the supervisor, who was the president of the company, have done? I wish he would have listened, because there was advice from myself and others that might have expedited the response in a non-aggressive way, and maybe had gotten us through quicker. Ultimately, that's not how it turned out, and the company wound up laying off 25 people, myself included, and was lucky to keep the doors open after that. What am I going to do as a leader now? Well, instead of eating ice cream, I would serve ice cream. And the point of that is basically engage everybody, understand when anybody in the team feels conscious incompetence, and that goes to an individual task that somebody's struggling with or needs assistance or material support with, as someone else just said, or whether it's just lightening the mood so we could get through a hard deadline or a tough month of metrics or whatever it might have been, just to try to refocus everybody on their strengths and kind of reset. And also, when I had the opportunity, I was able to speak to what the decisions were from the FDA and from our hired hand legal expert in response, and discuss openly how operations needed to work. We were holding on shows we were not able to sell, and on, but communication, I guess, is the summary statement for that. How would I use the elimination from a personality test? Well, coming from Myers-Briggs many years ago and being introvert, I could have gone back to the corner and eaten ice cream. But I know that wouldn't have helped anybody, maybe me a little bit. But when I think back on personality tests, I think of that awareness and that knowledge being a sort of superpower that we've kind of come to understand as a higher level of understanding through HBAP, and using that superpower to be always aware of who's struggling, what resource shortfalls you may have, etc., so that you can always have an effective team and leave no individual behind. So I'll pass it to Cass or Divya.
Thanks, Victor.
All right, I'll go. I will start off by saying, I think for me, so I went from working in a corporate job to now being part of a startup, right? So as I went through these questions, I thought of it from both the sides of it. What I did do is the first three, I approached it much more from a startup lens. And then the latter three was having been in a corporate world, having been in those situations, and the learnings from there, which I will continue into my startup, right? Like, so that was kind of the mindset that I went into. So, like conscious incompetence. And I think we start off with this by saying, I think when you join or when you are part of a startup, it is acknowledging from the get-go that you don't know everything, and that's why you're there, right? Like, so you've put yourself into that position. So I guess, with that, when you start off, there is, that you put yourself in that vulnerable position. So you always kind of come up with that defensiveness when someone's trying to tell you something. You always say, you're kind of always on the guard of, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing, right? But on the flip side to that, I guess it puts you in this position where you have this urgency to learn and figure things out, right? Like you acknowledge, so that's kind of where you say, you've gotten to the point where you know what you don't know. So you are starting off on your learning path, right? Like your learning curve. So you say, I am going to chip away at it. So it's that kind of where it switches from that defensiveness to, I need to figure this out and I need to figure this out fast, right? So that was kind of my lens at it from that. What could I have done differently? Again, from a startup lens, that's where I was like, I knew I was going into it. So I would have probably that's why I'll eat pizza with wine, have ice cream, fatten up myself because I know it's going to be a tough ride. Just the calories always help. So go with it. I guess, did you ask for help? I did. And I think it is part of that journey of, you guys being part of HBAP has helped me a lot. I have amazing co-founder. We've worked through things, we've discussed things, but I think it is that acknowledgement of, I don't know it and I have to work through it to be able to get to that accelerated growth perspective. What would I have done? So kind of from a supervisor perspective, right? Would you have liked the supervisor leader? So being in the corporate space, these last three questions, the latter questions is, check in, right? When you are doing something, which is, again, I've always been in situations where things have never been done before, or, they're embarking on a new project. So you just want people to check in, engage, and, kind of work with you to help make you successful, right? If you are truly a team player, you provide your team the resources to be successful as a team, right? So that was kind of my approach to it. What would I have done differently? Or going forward as a leader is what, just flip that around saying, what my manager should have done. The last one is kind of where I think Cass is to the point of a little bit more philosophical. I have had this test, I've had team members where, I've kind of based on their their personality traits, I put them in situations where they, they're much more detail oriented, put them at tasks that were detail oriented to team members that would love engaging people, right? So you kind of balance it. And that got us to the point of, I think, part of going through these personality tests is kind of similar to the strategy, right? It's the strategy of your team, right? As a company, we strategize, right? We understand competitors' strengths, weaknesses, how do we attack the market? What do we need to prepare for, right? These tests in a lot of ways, when you think of de-risking, it is strategizing your team to be successful, right? Your team being successful to your company being successful. So that's kind of where we approached it, and that's how we ended. Yes, you're done.
Similar to you, Divya, the first three questions kind of came from more of a personal experience as an artist, and then the last three were me in more of a team context in companies. But the first question, mostly it was emotion that came to the surface, and the strongest one that I felt is embarrassment, really, in that moment when you're aware of your incompetence. I mean, the example that came to mind for me was during a musical performance, making mistakes. It's that embarrassment almost comes from a failure to deliver to the team. In that case, the audience is the team. We want to all collaborate on this music and see it come to life, and me failing to bring it forth, it causes that emotional response and some defensiveness as well, knowing that you don't know it, and just coming to the next question. Really, in the initial stages and with startups, it's really hard to be able to prepare when you don't know. You kind of experience is the best teacher in the first pass, and then you learn what you don't know and what you need to learn to develop as you cycle through this model. I guess my answer to question 2 was to self-talk, give myself the benefit of the doubt, almost consciously know that I am incompetent, and give myself patience with myself and my performance, set that expectation that I'm not going to deliver it flawlessly, but to sort of, we talked self-soothing, having a self-soothing process, whether it's ice cream, wine, pizza, having an internal monologue of just saying, it's okay, we're going to get through this. These feelings of frustration and low confidence are going to dissipate because they can't last forever. Things change. So in the moment, I felt like that instinct for self-reliance, and the urgency that Divya is talking about to push through it carried me to not ask for help in the moment, but to realize that I can help myself through that if I have these practices of self-soothing and rituals or little things that can help me propel through those emotional, for me, very highly emotional phases of the model. And going to question 4, I think in the team context, I always appreciate when my leaders, whether it's my band members or my employer, like they listen and they share from their perspective, anecdotes from when they felt the same way or went through something. I love when people share their wisdom with me, and especially when it has that flavor of experience that's so powerful, to come from your own life, bringing something that you carried with you that was important enough to do that. So I love when leaders can almost have that empathetic willingness to share, and like Donna, like you were saying, to not feel like they're perfect and that they're just because they're supervising, they expect everyone else to have everything together. I think that when you share yourself openly, it's actually really empowering, because it allows you to face what could be termed as a weakness and just see it as rather like a need for communication, or a way, as we go into the last question, the strengths of having an awareness of everyone's powers. And like Divya was saying, it's like a sports metaphor. Like there's always a strategy where your team members and what they do, their roles, and what they thrive in, and what maybe they shy away from naturally, or what might be a better fit for them in terms of how they digest information, how they share their ideas. And I really like that metaphor of it's your team's big picture, and you're taking into account everything that they're going through, their contexts, their specific perspectives that have been built through their lives, and what they bring into the table. So I would definitely use, I'm going to take the Red Bull test after this and bring it in, because teams are what make the world go around. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, great conversation. Thank you.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you, Cass, Divya, and Link, and everyone. Victor. So too many things going on. Should we pause the recording, Susan? Do you want me to go?
Yeah, if somebody else wants to go, that's fine, or we can, this was awesome, right? We can
Yeah,
stop
Cass, that was
here,
really well
whatever
done.
people want to do. Oh,
Gordon's
Gordon.
raising his physical hand. I can see that. So Gordon, let's call on you then.
Yeah, so I'm raising my physical hand because can you open the slide that we filled out as a team?
What
Yeah.
slide number was that?
What
Do you know?
number?
It was after 2 slides after Todd Brous.
9.
Slide 10. 10.
There
this
you
you?
are. Okay.
There you are.
So we filled out female first. Argiana was cohort 1, and then in parentheses it's the other cohort. So I'm 13 and Wilson is 17. Just so you know what those numbers mean. And we tell a story of how you felt conscious incompetence, the area in the yellow. So we filled out 3 items that would be all related to our experiences. So I'm sure all of you, when you were learning RStudio in HBAP, right? That was that is like, oh, what do I do with this? Where does this go? And you haven't seen the next classes yet, and then you ultimately don't see the machine learning. So you're thinking like, oh my gosh, this fire hose, all right, this is Harvard. What is it going to do? Well, then when you become a parent, right, for the first time. Now, the person you marry, or your spouse, you don't really think about, oh, you know what, I've never married before. Whether or not I'm going to be successful, geez, what should I do? Right? You don't really have the same fears as when you become a parent. And you say, like, how do I increase my awareness? Maybe Alexander technique could help, and that's just building off of Cass, right? If we knew more about our surroundings, and perhaps, but who do I ask? And then when you start your business, should I keep it as a mom and pop, or should I raise capital? And if I raise capital, who are these investors, right? And number 2 was, how could you have done it differently in that situation? Well, find someone who knows RStudio. All right, I spoke with Todd. I said, Todd, what am I going to do? All right, and so that was one thing. Practice, right? Shadow, meet other parents. That doesn't always make it feel better, because then you look at what they're going through, and they keep going through that until they're totally spent. They've paid all their tax dollars. Their kids go to school, and now they're like totally drained, and they just want to retire and expire, right? So you might have a shadowing of that, and you say, all right, well, that's okay. Did it help or not help, right? That's number 3. Well, I asked TFs. They don't really like to be asked a lot. And then professors, they really don't want to be asked or bothered, right? They just want you to go and figure it out. You could ask your parents. Now, that's not about RStudio, but you ask your parents about parenting, right? And then you say, like, you depends on how they treated you. You might not do what they did to you, right? And then you don't get a chance to ask that sometimes, right? And then you also, for investments and things, you want to ask people who succeeded as entrepreneurs, but they also succeed in a different time period. It's kind of like obstetrics, having children as the second time. You're older, it's a different child. You might have a girl, then you have a boy. Whatever it is, it's different. So asking mentors, investors, entrepreneurs, what do they really know anyway, right? In this new situation, but you ask anyway. You ask it, you keep asking until you kind of get tired of asking, and then you have to ask again, right? So, and then their answers might even change depending on when you ask them and how long it is, right? So then you could also join groups like help groups, and huddle groups. Startups is another group that you could join, right? And then, okay, number 4. What would you have liked your supervisor to have done to help you through that situation? So one, I did it in the maximum intensity is spoon feeding. Feed me, like directly from I want to just open my mouth and just be fed, right? No fire hose though, just mentoring. Then you could have them hold your hand, right? And that kind of mentoring. Or you could have them let you sink, but know that you'll always swim. There's that type of style too. And, different intensities for different times. My mood could change 15, 20 times a day, depending on if I'm doing a startup. Startups do that to you, that's normal, So yeah, that all depends. And so my team, it's all about the team. We all collectively thought about these answers. And then we had 6 minutes left to even get to know each other. But what are you now going to do as a leader? Detect or respond. We want to keep an open mind. Because, by the way, I just came from my Wharton class that talked about the bank failure. This is extra for people. And it said that the last bank failure in 2008 was nothing like this current bank failure. It actually turns out Silicon Valley Bank had a 22-to-1 uninsured to insured deposit ratio. And the maximum should ever have is 5-to-1. I'm not a banker. How am I supposed to know that, right? So you keep an open mind. You learn new things. Servant leadership. Right? You learn to be a leader so that you could be like perhaps the tyrant, and then you learn to be the servant. I mean, oh my gosh, the slap on their face. You have to learn that. But you do it because the world is changing. You want to be proactive to detect as opposed to reactive and respond, right? So we all agreed on that. And then number 6, the last one. How do you use the illuminations from personality tests to help you de-risk yourself and your team? Know more about each other in different stretch settings, extreme difficult settings, right? Create extreme difficult settings because, it may be okay to make 1 out of 20, like you get 20 test question, you get 1 wrong. It's not so bad, right? You still have a 95. But let me change the setting on you. And we talk about context at the very last thing is, what if you're a teacher and you brought 20 kids to a field trip and 19 came back? It's only like you still got 95% coming back, but in that context, it's so different, right? So the context changes. So we want to de-risk ourselves because is it the Fed's fault for raising the interest rate so high? Or is it the bank's fault for not reading the news? It was only a few banks, right? So, all right. So extreme, difficult, stretch situations, moral and ethical challenges, only by having an entire team with the same alignment of goals, can you illuminate yourself? So now I've gone on video because I do believe in this whole thing about HBAP and startups. Come to this place. This will save your life. It saved mine. So, yeah, this sign and also this one, right? This stock one. So yeah, I'm all set.
Thanks, Gordon.
Right.
That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Looking at the time, it's 9:45. Susan, what would you like to do?
Yeah. Unless anybody else is just really wanting to talk, we probably should stop. I don't know, or Ardiana or Wilson, any last thoughts from your group?
No, I thank you, Gordon. You summed up everything that I think I had, we discussed together. So thank you.
Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing. I just want to thank everyone for coming and doing this with us workshop. We hope it was really helpful. Just as a reminder, next week is the HBAP social overtime, and then we'll be back the following Wednesday. Susan.
Yeah. So fun. It was great to hear your stories and your observations. And also, we're really looking forward to your feedback in the survey because, we're continuing this workshop kind of focus of de-risking. So we want to know your thoughts about that as well.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm going to stop the recording. Please stick around for some overtime. Thanks for coming.